Walk into any team building on LLMs and you'll hear the same debate. Should we use RAG or should we fine tune? It's framed as a fork in the road, pick the winner, but that framing is the mistake. RAG and fine tuning are not two answers to one question, they're two different places to put knowledge. One bakes it into the model's weights, the other keeps it in an external store. The model reads at query time. And there's a third place we forget, the prompt itself, the long context window. So the question that actually helps you ship is not which one wins. It's the architect's question for this specific need. Where should that intelligence live? Get that right, and the RAG versus fine tuning argument dissolves. Let's lay out the three homes for knowledge because once you see them, the decision gets easy. The first is the weights themselves, that's fine tuning. You change the model's parameters so the knowledge, or really the behavior, becomes permanent and built in. The second is an external store, that's retrieval augmented generation, RAG. The knowledge lives in a database or index, and the model fetches the relevant piece fresh at query time. The third home is the one people forget, the prompt itself, the long context window. You just paste the knowledge in. It's immediate and simple, but it's bounded by the window. And as we covered in the context rod video, that window degrades the more you fill it. Three homes, three very different sets of trade-offs. Here's the evidence that settles the most common mistake, trying to fine-tune facts into a model. Researchers at Microsoft ran a careful comparison called fine-tuning or retrieval, testing both approaches at injecting new knowledge across a range of tasks. The result was consistent. RAG outperformed fine-tuning for knowledge injection in almost every case. On a test of genuinely new, current events knowledge, RAG scored about 0.88, while fine-tuning managed only around 0.5. RAG nearly doubled it. Models simply struggle to absorb new facts through standard fine-tuning. So what is fine-tuning good for? Behavior. Use it when you need the model to consistently follow a format, adopt your company's voice, or reason in a particular style. Fine-tuning shapes how the model acts. It is the raw tool for knowledge that changes. So, if fine-tuning owns behavior, RAG owns knowledge, especially the kind that changes. The idea goes back to the founding RAG paper from Meta in 2020, which paired a generative model with a retriever. Instead of relying only on what's frozen in the weights, the model pulls in relevant documents at query time and grounds its answer in them. That architecture has two superpowers that fine-tuning can't match. First, freshness. When your knowledge changes, you update the store, not the model. No retraining, no redeployment of weights. Second, traceability. Because the answer is grounded in retrieved documents, you can cite sources and audit where a claim came from, which matters enormously for compliance. So reach for RAG when your knowledge is volatile, large, or needs to be cited. That's its home turf. Let's ground all of this in a real production system at a company you know. LinkedIn published at the SciGR Research Conference how they built a customer service question, answering assistant, and it's a textbook case of putting knowledge in the right place. Their support knowledge lived in a huge pile of past issue tracking tickets, so they used RAG to retrieve from it rather than trying to fine-tune all of that into a model. But they found that treating each ticket as plain text threw away crucial structure, how issues relate, what's nested inside a ticket. So they constructed a knowledge graph that preserved those relationships and retrieved relevant subgraphs at query time. The payoff was concrete and measured. Retrieval accuracy jumped by 77.6%, and the median time to resolve an issue dropped by 28.6% in production. That's what choosing the right home for knowledge looks like when it ships. So here's the framework you can actually use on Monday. Ask what you need. If it's knowledge that changes or that you must be able to cite, put it in a store and use RAG. If it's behavior, a consistent format, a tone of voice, a reasoning pattern, bake it into the weights with fine-tuning. If it's a small, stable body of knowledge that comfortably fits and you can afford the tokens, just paste it into the prompt with long context. But keep the context rot lesson in mind because that path degrades as it grows. And here's the part that dissolves the original debate. The best production systems don't pick one, they're hybrid. They fine-tune for style and reasoning, and they use RAG for the facts, which is exactly why RAG or fine-tuning was the wrong question all along. Let's turn the framework into a function you can drop into a design review. The route function asks the only questions that matter. First, is this behavior a format, a tone, a reasoning style? If so, it belongs in the weights, so we fine-tune. Notice there's no branch that fine-tunes facts. That's the mistake the Microsoft study caught. Next, is the knowledge volatile or does it need citations? Then it belongs in a store, so we use RAG, fetch it fresh, cite the source, update without retraining. And if it's a small, stable body of knowledge you can afford to paste, long context is fine, as long as you remember it rots as it grows. And the default, when you're genuinely unsure, is retrieval, because RAG fails gracefully and updates cheaply. Run this on each piece of knowledge your product needs, and you'll usually land on a hybrid, fine-tuned for how the model talks, RAG for what it knows. That's the whole video in one function. Stop asking which tool wins, decide where each kind of knowledge should live. Let's bring it home. Stop asking whether RAG or fine-tuning is better, because they were never competing for the same job. Knowledge that changes, or that you need to cite, belongs in retrieval. That's what the Microsoft study and LinkedIn's production system both confirm. Behavior, format, and reasoning style belong in the weights through fine tuning. And a small, stable corpus can simply live in the prompt via long context as long as you respect the rod. The mature move isn't to pick a side, it's to architect a hybrid where each kind of intelligence lives in the place that serves it best. That's the whole discipline in one sentence. Don't ask which tool wins. Decide where your knowledge should live. Thanks for watching.